Welcome back to the Optimize You podcast, the place where we're helping you optimize looking and feeling your best. If you enjoy the show, be sure to share it with a friend, like, and subscribe. And let's get into today's podcast.
No, but it like comes down to like comparison, right? Like because there's you talked about how you have like people are scared to say that they want to look good, right? They dance around it, but I think that a lot of times is like almost worried about what other people think of us. Like it's just natural human instinct, and then also like comparing the comparison in the health and fitness industry is crazy. Where there's just always like, oh, I gotta like, I see it a lot of times with clients actually where it's somebody's doing some crazy drastic approach, right? And they're like, they're in the program, seeing consistent results, right? But it's not the same results that their friend is getting or their coworkers getting because they're losing 10 pounds every 2 weeks. It's like they're seeing these crazy results because they're eating nothing or they're doing some like Ozempic or one of those type of approaches, and so it's just I don't know. I think all of those are almost linked.
Yeah, Sally's losing 5 pounds a week and I'm only losing a half a pound. Like, it just becomes this whole comparison thing. And, but I think even then, like setting, here's what I found is like the people that when you first start and you establish the goal first and foremost, whether it's talking to a coach, whether you're conversating with yourself, I think it's easier to admit that you want to look better than your current state, right? Just not a lot of people are willing to admit that, and they'll resort to some sort of phony thing that they don't really want because they don't want to sound like they're a conceited asshole. So they'll be like, I want to have more energy, or I want to, I just want to be in better overall health and longevity, which may be a goal, but may not be the main driver of why they want to do it. And when you peel back the layers of the onion and you get deep enough and you figure out that, oh, you actually just want to look better. It's very popular with people who just went through breakups, right? I talked to a lot of people, whether it was divorce, like whatever, dude, like people are back out on the market and it's like, I know subconsciously what they want to do. And sometimes I have these conversations with people and it'll just be like, yeah, I just really want to, I got to do something because my energy's super low. And it's like, I want to have more energy to be able to play with my kids. And like, it's like, no, you want to look good so you can get back out on the market and be marketable and have a set of eyes on you and find a new person. Like that's what you want. And once they admit that, then they're like, oh, okay, it's okay to say that. Like it's cool to say that. I'm like, yeah, there's no judgment here. Like just tell me what you really want so I can better help you as a coach. And like when I figure out those things and truly hear that, oh, you actually do want to look better than your current state. You feel like you're, and people will bag on themselves. They feel like they're overweight, they're fat, they don't want to stare at themselves in the mirror when they take their shirt off, nor does a potential partner either. And they know that. And so they're like, okay, this is embarrassing to admit that this is what I want. So I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to beat around the bush and just say I want these other things. And by default, I'll look better by doing these other things, by like trying to increase my energy, but I won't have to tell Matt because I don't know, it's just embarrassing, right? On the flip side, there's other people that are just like, dude, I flat out just want to look better. And I'm like, great, you can be off to the races. You don't have to beat around the bush with me. We can jump straight to the point and we can get you on a plan and we can start rating now. Like, and the buy-in and the commitment from that person that's willing to admit that is so much greater than somebody who just beats around the bush and like isn't willing to admit that they want to look better in fear of it being a conceited goal, in fear of it being some sort of vanity thing, in fear of, 99% of people, that's what they want to do is they want to look better, whether they admit it or not, right? The health aspect is going to be there, of course. The improvements of energy, like we talked about, having energy to be able to play with your kids, being able to have functional strength to lift things without injuring yourself as you get older. Like those things are absolutely all there. But I think a lot of people would be lying if they said that, oh yeah, I don't care what I look like, you know what I mean? Going through this process, there's a huge part of them that's lying to themselves. However, when they admit to it, man, there's this huge stress and pressure that comes off their shoulders of being like, especially when I can share those goals with people too and be like, hey, you know what? I'm right there with you too. I want to look better. I want to feel good too, but I want to look better too. And That's a very common goal. Like, it's okay to admit that you want to look better naked. Like, it's fine. That's great. It's an awesome goal. Like, trust me, a lot of people want it. Very few admit it. And when they do that and they go, oh, it's okay to want that. Like, actually, we can create a plan to pursue that each and every single day. And I'm gonna be able to buy in much better to the process and adhere to it and have much more consistency because I'm going after this thing that I actually want. And I admitted to the person that's helping me that I actually want. They know what I want. So we're on the same page and we can work on this thing together. It's so freeing. And I wish I just encourage more people to be like, hey, it's okay to want to look better. Is it all about that? No, but a huge part of it is, and it's okay to admit it.
Yeah. Oh, it's. I mean, you see yourself in the mirror every day, right? Like, and if you're not satisfied, like that's a huge. Like you said, we talked about this on a previous podcast where it's like that. If once you actually start going after the main actual goal that you're wanting, instead of trying to go after other people's goals, trying to go after what you think you should go after, bullshitting yourself. That's where the real results start to happen. That's where you can find like an actual huge driver behind it, and it becomes a lot easier to achieve it. But let me ask you this. So, because I think this is a huge thing, like tracking goals. And let's be honest, like looking better isn't necessarily the easiest trackable goal. So what do you do with your clients when that's the main thing is like, I want to look better naked. I want to achieve this. Like, what are you, how do we determine when that has been reached? How do you make it more definable? Like helping people out there who have this goal.
Yeah, because I think if you don't make it definable, then it could turn into like this never ending, like compulsive, like you see it a lot with figure competitors and bodybuilders, right? And that's another thing too, is like it's okay to never have to have the never satisfied mentality, but I think it's also encouraged to create some sort of benchmark or landmarks. And I think the easiest way to do it, this is I have my personal clients take biweekly photos, progress photos. And the reason for that is because you and I both know that the scale isn't always going to tell your progress. A lot of things aren't always going to tell our progress, but progress photos absolutely will. And so whether you're losing body fat from a specific area, you may be feeling phenomenal, but the scale doesn't represent that. So it's easy to discourage yourself. And sometimes we don't see drastic change on a biweekly progress photo. The reason I have it is to create that callus and that frequency and getting used to like, hey, even though I feel like I look the same, I'm going to keep taking these pictures every 2 weeks because it's just part of my routine. It's what I do. I want to get in a rhythm of it. And eventually after those compound, then you can start to look back and go, let me look at my original ones. I always compare to their original one. Um, and we do front, back, and side comparisons. And man, it's amazing to see some of the changes. And I do a screen share video where I compare them side to side and I go, hey, I don't know if you've pulled up your original progress photos in some time, but look, here they are. And this is what I see. And they're literally blown away. They're like, holy shit, I didn't know like that's what I looked like. I didn't know like my clothes were fitting better and I'm feeling better, but I didn't know that's what I forgot that's what I used to look like. And progress photos can be an amazing, amazing thing. And trust me, it's one of the most uncomfortable things to do, especially when you're starting out. And I've had to create like video modules and trainings around this to tell people, hey, the people that chose not to take pictures in the beginning regretted not having them when they went through and like made these life-changing transformations. They wanted to have some pictures to look back and compare to because they made these drastic changes, but they're like, damn, I was so afraid to take those first pictures. I say, even if you take your starting pictures and you don't upload them on my app, like on my platform, to where I can see them, that's fine. Just keep them on your phone, like email them to yourself. Like I want you to have them. That's most important. And the people that do now, and like I tell them that part, and they're like, okay, I will. Like I'm embarrassed to upload them. Like I'm like, cool, that's totally fine. I get it. Just keep them for yourself because you're gonna want them later. And when they do, man, and they can make that comparison to what they once looked like to what they do now, because you said it, it's like we look the same. We feel like we look the same every single day. But when you look back on some pictures, especially like vulnerable pictures where you're standing for girls, like you're standing in your bra and shorts or your underwear, and guys just in shorts or underwear and no shirt, like you're extremely vulnerable. You're going to have some areas there that are exposed, that are extremely uncomfortable. But if you've been putting the work in consistently, even despite the scale not changing, body composition is a real thing, right? We can redistribute, pull fat off of our body, build musculature. Our bodies can shape and form and look totally different. And if you don't have those pictures to compare and look to, You're going to feel like you're doing all this work and like nothing's happening. But when you have a progress photo to compare to, man, it's that spark that a lot of these people need to say, oh man, I am on the right path. Like this is awesome, man. So do you take progress photos? Did you have your, do you have your clients do it? What do you do as far as that?
Oh yeah, no, I think that's huge. I think that's the best form of measurement: progress photos and body measurements. You know, getting that waist, getting like different parts. I think waist is one of the the biggest thing. You know, that's where you're going to see a lot of the results. If you can get some other things out there, but yeah, I mean, I'm a huge advocate for those different forms of measurement as well, because like you said, like the scale doesn't always show the whole picture. I know for me, I've been 230 shredded and I've been 230 fluffy,
Yeah.
you know? But like if you put those two photos side by side, you'd be like, no,
Different
like
dude.
that guy there is 260, that guy there is 215, right? It's like you probably think that they're really drastically different body like weights, but they're the same. And I think that that's something that people don't understand, and that's why like BMI is such a terrible calculator of like you see like there's obese people in the NFL that are just the most jacked and shredded people you've ever seen in your life. But yeah, no, so I think that's huge. What would you say though, like so I know like you mentioned this, right? So I just want to dig into it a little bit more where, you can get into that never ending spiral. I think you see this a lot with competitive people. Like I've seen it with myself, like with a lot of different things where you get into certain things where it's never good enough, right? And then it's like, oh, then my goal is to hit this, and like then you hit that, and then it's like, oh well, I got to do this and then this and then, and you're just like in that never ending spiral of like just chasing like the next thing, right? It's like you see it a lot with money, right? Where it's like, oh, I want to make this much money, and then you make that much, and you're like, oh, I want to make that like another more and more and more and more, and then you just get in this whole thing where it's not even about what it started to be about. And so like, do you have certain things with your clients where you can make the undefinable definable, where it's like, I want to look good, I want to look my best, I want to look better, like like I know that you use progress photos to help them see the progress within it, but is there a way that you've found to create a goal around that that's like, we know when we've attained this?
Yeah. So it's either that, it's either the goal. I really encourage people that if they're kind of borderline, like, man, I think this might be an obsession for them, I let them know first and foremost, like there's certain obsessions. I think the terminology that we use is super important too to help somebody understand their scenario. So when we say obsession and you being obsessed with your progress and your journey and your process of health and fitness, I let them know that that can be a good thing. If you and I think it comes down to this. I think it comes down to the level of intentionality and control that somebody has. Um, Meaning, do they remain in control, or are they letting the process and their results or lack thereof results constantly make them feel less than or mediocre or average, and they have these like very demeaning self, kind of inflicting wounds that can be detrimental over time. However, I feel like somebody can use that to their advantage to have a healthy obsession. If it meaning like use that as like a chip on your shoulder. However, I think it all comes down to the amount of control that somebody has. Meaning, if I were to ask you in your process, is everything negative? Meaning like, I can't, I look like trash. And like some people will say this and they're ripped, right? Like they're phenomenal. They're a less than 1% body. And they're like, dude, I'm fat. I'm overweight. Like I ate too much yesterday on my cheat meal and I feel a little bit bloated. And like, they're finding everything negative to find about themselves when everybody would kill to have a fraction of their body or fitness or health level. Right. And so for somebody like that, it could be detrimental. However, you can have that kind of obsession and that kind of like critical attention to detail, because I think it can catapult you to whole nother levels that you may not even thought you were capable of achieving. I think it comes down to the level and degree of control that you have and intentionality, meaning like, yes, have that chip on your shoulder. Yes, go like, I want to have that never satisfied mentality. And by the way, it's okay too, but I need to have the ability to pull back and go, let me look at how far I've come, look at my process now, look at where I was to where I am now. And it's okay to feel proud of that. I know I'm not finished and I know I'm not satisfied, but I'm not just going to keep beating myself down for it. I'm going to actually acknowledge some of these, we call them the small wins, right? I'm going to acknowledge and vocalize some of these wins for myself, and I'm going to be proud of myself, and I'm going to feel that. And if you can do that, I think it can be healthy as hell, man. And you can use that thing and you can ride the coattails of that. I think it's actually a huge advantage to have that, but you got to be able to remain in control of it. Like, don't let it take so much control of your journey to where it's like the only thing that you obsess about and think about, and anything else is just like, detrimental to it. And you're not even close to where you want to be. And by the way, that person usually looks phenomenal, right? I think that is where it becomes unhealthy. But man, is it such a beautiful thing when somebody knows how to use that to their advantage. It's like the Tom Brady thing, like going undrafted, or like, backing up Bledsoe and his whole story. And like, he used the chip on his shoulder, you know what I mean? And like used it to his advantage and was totally in control of his situation and obviously became great. I think you can use that. I think you can use and have a healthy obsession. And as long as you remain in control, I think it could be a beautiful thing. I think the problem is we make these blanket statements of the very few that have this never satisfied mentality and use it to where it's like it's hurting them, meaning like they never see any good in their situation, and they may look and feel amazing and phenomenal. So I think there has to be that little ounce of humility in there to be like, okay, I've come this far. I'm proud of myself. I still want to keep going, but damn, I've come a long way. Like, if you have the ability to do that and say that and vocalize that, I think you're on the right path. If you don't, and you're just like nothing is good in your eyes, like, then it's probably going to become an unhealthy habit, an unhealthy problem. But that's just kind of my view on it. That's what I preach to my clients. I always try to have them like, let's be centered ground. Let's be centered as much as we possibly can. The progress photos are going to be something that we can use as reference. I know we're still going in this direction, and even when somebody moves beyond with working with me, I know they're either going to want to maintain what they currently have, or they want to use all the tools that they learn to continue to progress. Either way is great. But they also have to have the humility and be able to look at, man, look at how far I came. Look at what I did. I remember people were like, man, I remember when I used to like not look forward to travel because I was so nervous because I haven't developed the skills to be able to, and I thought I was going to lose all my progress when I went on a 7-day vacation. Now after I know that, they're more well-versed, they have the tools to be able to be successful. They've created and put habits in place to be very confident and believe in themselves. And so their whole process is different now. And so they're very confident in that. But yeah, you can start to see like psychological differences and changes and evolution through somebody's journey. And so I think it's more so that, and being able to like look back, than it is like, here's this benchmark or here's this body weight mark. Like, I'm not a huge fan of like the body weight goals. For a particular person, it works really well. But not everybody, because body composition is a real thing. And so you can, like, you just used your example of like the 230 being super lean and shredded and just ugly, like, so.
Well, what do you think? What do you think about like more of like a body fat goal, or like a size goal or something like that? Like, I think where people go wrong a lot of times in those is they set these like crazy like unattainable ones for those, or like they go right to like, oh, I want to be like 10% body fat, or I want to. I guess you wouldn't see like size with a dude, really. Like, no dude even cares about like really sitting into the same size. Maybe like, for pants, like maybe you would see like, oh, I want to get into like a this, but I think more like less with dudes, it's more like a body fat type thing. But also, like, I think that's a tough situation to start going into, because like sometimes people don't understand that like if I want like to get abs or something like that, maybe that's my goal. Like, maybe I have to get down to 5% body fat to show abs, as opposed to like maybe somebody else just has to get to 16% body fat. Because I think it comes down so much to like genetics and like just different things, like where there's certain goals that aren't attainable for certain people, where it's like what you see on like a Mr. Olympia, which obviously they're using things too, but like somebody like that who's like a bodybuilder, maybe they are natural bodybuilder and they're just shredded and like have so much muscle on them. That's not going to be attainable for everybody. Maybe if you did everything you possibly could and got down to 5% body fat, you're still not going to look like that. And so like there's certain things that people need to understand there. But I do love what you're saying about like the focusing on the positives. Like I think that's a trap that is so easy to fall into, where you kind of start getting a negative mindset, and like you pick out all the little things you didn't do from a day when there was like so many things that you did that were so good, where it's like, oh, I didn't get my workout in today, but you walked 10,000 steps, you crushed your protein goal, you ate some really good quality foods, you drank all your water, you like did some good self-care, like you did all of these things, but you're going to pick out this one thing you didn't do, right? And so I think that there's a lot of really really good there when it comes to like continuing to make progress, and like not comparing yourself to other people. And mentioning it again, I think is just a huge thing as well along those same lines, where if you can just go and like keep the blinders on and just not focus on other people, not focus on what they're doing. Like they're going to have different goals than you. They're going to have different, like their body's going to get rid of body fat or weight differently than you do. Like you're going to, they're going to see different kinds of gains in the gym. Like there's a lot of different things that are outside of your control when it comes to that. So if you can kind of run your own race, so to speak, and just stay in your own lane and focus on the little small things you can do every day to make progress, then you're going to see a lot better results.
That's huge. You guys got to rewind that one. Go back a little bit. He just gave you a gold nugget right there. That's exactly what you should do. I mean, and it's not to say like don't have these like super crazy big ass goals. You do need those, but once those are set, you got to get out of the comparison game quick. Like you got to get out of like, oh, so and so is there. They're at a certain body fat percentage. I should be there as well, and then I should probably look the same as them when I'm at that body fat percentage too. And just like you said right now, bro, it's like there's so many factors and variables that go into it aside from just genetics, right? Like just there's so many different variables that are going to determine the way you actually physically look. And so just because you're at a certain body fat percentage does not mean, and then nor should you discount yourself for not looking a certain way or like a certain person when you've achieved the same body fat percentage as them. Like there's so many factors that go into that, but people will absolutely get discouraged and think that they're less than and like inferior and that they're not on the right path and maybe they're doing something wrong. And it's like, no, just like you said, stick to your own race, continue to put one foot in front of the other, understand that your journey is your journey. And when you can do that and you're no longer caught up in like the whole comparison to other people game, do that to a point to like inspire you and motivate and see what's achievable and things like that. But do it to a point where it's like, okay, I got my eye set on something. I want to go towards that, whether it's a person, a thing, a circumstance, whatever. And then once that's set in stone, you got to run your own race. You got to stick to your own, like, where was I last week? How can I improve today? How can I make a little bit of shift, a slight adjustment, a 1% increment that's going to move me in the right direction today? That's all you should be focusing on. And when you can do that, you're going to start to evolve. You're going to start to see progression. You're going to start to fall in love with your own journey. Because there's so many things that you could potentially be doing right, or somebody could be doing right in their process, and they get caught up in the comparison thing. And like, oh, and all they see is they're looking through the lens of lack. They're looking through the lens of, damn, so and so's there. They've been doing it less time than I have. They've achieved it faster than I have. And we're actually just looking at the tip of their iceberg. We don't know their whole story, right? We don't know that that person may have potentially have gone through so many different but maybe they have a vast like athletic background. That's very popular, right? Like somebody looks like they're fat and out of shape, but they have this huge athletic background or played professionally in some sport, and they have this massive, like their training age is super high, and somebody just sees their surface level like, oh, they've been doing the same program as me for 16 weeks. They got shredded with a six pack and I can't see visible abs for me. Like, what the hell's going on? You know what I mean? And so like you get in this comparison thing, and you're like, you're comparing to somebody's tip of the iceberg. You're comparing to somebody's highlight reel on Instagram, right? It's like, it's the same thing. And you're going to constantly see yourself as inferior or less than, which makes it extremely discouraging, which opens up the door for throwing in the towel and giving up. And so that's where the majority of people are. I think is they're on their path, they're on the road, and they keep looking left, they keep looking right, and they see other people and where they're at and where they're not at. And they just take the exit and they get off their path when they should have just stayed on. And unfortunately, that's the case for a lot of people. So yeah, man, I think you hit it on the head when you said like, run your own race. And if you can do that, use other people for inspiration, motivation, to help you set your goals, to give you something to shoot for, to even go past something. But once you set that, it's like, okay, now chip backwards. It's time to chip away at it and work at it. and not constantly keep comparing yourself to that person or that thing or whatever it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I think that's great, and like you compare yourself to the person you were yesterday. I think it's also really good to. I like this in a lot of different types of goals where you like look back and see how far you've come. Where it's like you remember like the start of it, you know, and it's like, oh shit, like I have all these habits. Oh wow, like I looked way different back then. Like I think it's easy when we see ourselves the same in the mirror every day, even when we're making progress. Um, it's easy to lose sight of the like where we've come from, and like, oh, I started here, I was eating fast food all the time, and then now fuck, I make stuff from home 90% of the time, and I crush my protein, and I do all these different things, and I work out 4 days a week, and I'm constantly moving, and just I've gotten more connections, and I've dropped my stress down. I sleep better. It's like some people, it's like they need the reminder sometimes of like, hey, like look at where you were, look where you are now, because you forget about like in the grind and the day to day, like you lose track of like just the progress that you've really made. So I'd even challenge you out there, like listening, whoever's listening, to just like if you are on the journey, like look back and just remember how far you have come. Because I would imagine that even if you've been doing this for 2 weeks, you probably made some good progress there in those 2 weeks that you can use to like keep pushing forward, right? Just keep trying to get a little bit better every day, every week. And it's also something I do want to mention that just kind of popped in my head is like this whole like notion of like we need to get there now, right? And like the nature of it all is like we've talked about this many times, not a good approach, right? Doesn't lead to any good results. A lot of people end up going backwards at a certain point, or like ending up back where they started, or even in worse shape, right? Just because you can't sustain those results. But also like why do we feel like we need to get to this place so quickly? Like, you think about if you were to look back, if you were to do what I say and you were to look back at the end, like 2 years down the road, right? And you're like, oh, now you've achieved your goal. Um, it took you 2 years to do it. Like, it's not going to feel like any better, like if you did it in 6 months, right? I don't know. Like, it's just like we think about it, like we need to get there all like so quickly because we're such like an instant gratification culture. Like that's how we're wired. But like in the end, I think that thing puts that approach puts a lot of stress on you, and just like focusing on these small things is going to allow it to fit into your lifestyle a lot easier. You're going to be able to like not stress about things as much. The progress may be slower, but it's going to be sustainable, and you're going to look back and be like, oh, I'm so happy I did it like this. Like I've had clients where they're like, I like did all these different things, and they like went through my program and they were not seeing like that quick of results, right? But they like I constantly would point out the wins and these little small things that they're doing that are doing well, and just like point them back to the initial version of them when they started the program. It's like, hey, look at all these habits you've built, and like I've gotten constant things where they're like, I'm so happy I did it this way, right? Like I know that I'm going to be able to keep the results I got, and a lot of times like people just like they're so focused on getting to the finish line as quick as possible that you lose track, and you forget to enjoy the journey. You lose yourself along the way a little bit, and then you end up putting on the weight again, right? And you end up going back to where you were because you never actually did it in a way that allowed you to keep the results.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff in there. We started off with saying it's okay to look good and feel good and attack and progress towards something like that. It's okay to have those sort of goals. It doesn't have to just be energy based and health based. Those things are great, but letting everybody know that it is okay to want to look good and feel good and make that a good, solid, tangible target and goal to create clarity around. And when you have that kind of visibility along your journey, man, you will adhere like you had never seen before. Sometimes it's the unlock and the key that people need is to have that kind of crystal clear clarity and honesty with themselves to be able to want that thing and let yourself know that it's okay. There is a healthy obsession to want and go towards that thing, and you can use it to your advantage like we talked about today. So hopefully that was helpful. Rewind back, there was a lot of gold nuggets in there, especially when Alex was talking about the whole comparison game and trying to compare you to how you were the previous week. Go back, listen to that part, because sometimes that is the one thing that is separating you from where you're at now to attaining your goal, and could be the difference of why you don't give up this time around when you have in the past. So if you guys like that, please share it with somebody, a friend, a family member, somebody, guys, that you feel like would absolutely benefit from it. We're releasing pods and episodes each and every single week, and we will catch you guys on the next one.